Well, one of the things that the Backyard Initiative is founded on, and that's because of the Cultural Wellness Center's work and legacy, is that to do this work in community, meaning is necessary to know one's own cultural identity. And not to know other people's cultural identity. So it's not about cultural diversity. It's not about cultural competence. It's about self-learning one's own culture. And that's especially tricky for European Americans because European Americans are in the dominant culture. And so we think of, I have to say I don't, and that's what I'm going to come back to. But we, speaking in a more collective, we think that other people have culture and we don't. And that's when we sometimes want to gravitate to other people's culture and wanting to know it and whatever. And that's when like appropriation happens of appropriation of other people's ideas or other people's cultural identity and all their ways of knowing and all that kind of stuff. So I think one of the things that just personally is really hard for me is being a second-generation American. I have a strong sense of my cultural identity within my own ethnicity and my class. And I think that I have come to understand cultural identity for me being that ethnicity and class, being female, being heterosexual, being all of these other, mother, grandmother, all that kind of stuff is all part of my identity. And so sometimes what's hard for me is just being European American. Because the struggle is to learn one culture so that you know yourself, so that you can be thinking about your own biases, your own history, or the history of your people, the legacy that comes with that, to know how those histories have sometimes come in bad ways, or still being part of that dominant culture. So how do you not have to start over every time when you're meeting a new person or starting a new piece of the project or a piece of the work? That gets confusing to me, of when do I just keep going on and saying, okay, I've done all this thinking and about who I am and who my people are, and let's get to work. And then I think, well, wait, that's that Germanic part that's just wanting to get to the task. And what's the real work here? And really, a lot of times the real work is just connecting, and really deeply connecting and staying connected. And it's not necessarily getting something done. But if you don't get something done, sometimes it's hard for people to stay together because it feels like, what are we doing? We're just doing all this kind of esoteric kind of work. So I'd say that that's probably the hardest thing for me, or maybe it's the hardest thing for me right now, is when am I just working from that European American dominant culture, on task, needing to get projects done, and when am I just being and allowing other people to be and letting whatever comes out of our being together to bubble up. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's one of those kinds of things. And I'd say the other piece of that that's related is the individual and working collectively. I'm much more prone to work collectively, but it's very hard in an American culture to work collectively because we are sort of taught and socialized to just be responsible for our individual selves. So those are the two things that I think I work on the most.